Part 2. Albert Rogers worked hard to get Doc and Jim onto prestigious stages. In New York, they performed in their own Broadway play, The Scholar and a Model Office Boy. Jim played the parts of a student and a clerk. He answered the phone, rang school bells, identified colors, made change from a cash register, filed letters, and more. At a performance in St. Louis, Jim showed off his math skills. A man called out, "Jim, if you take 7, multiply it by 3, add 9, divide by 3, and subtract 7, what should the answer be?" Jim paused for a moment, then picked up the card marked with a 3. The man jumped to his feet. "You're wrong, Jim," he shouted. "The answer is 7. Jim shook his head. No, no, no. The audience hurried to do the math. It turned out that Jim was correct. The answer was 3. People asked Doc if any horse could learn the skills Jim had mastered. He said yes, providing he has not been abused. By 1898, school districts around the country had decided that Doc Key and beautiful Jim Key were perfect examples of education and kindness. They canceled school days so students could see Jim perform. Children lined up to compete in spelling bees against the most highly educated horse in the world. In St. Louis, Missouri, Jim won by spelling the word revelation. In Minneapolis, Minnesota, he won with the name Isaiah. In Baltimore, Maryland, he won by spelling the word physics. Other cities came up with different words to test Jim. Most times, Jim won. Around the United States, about 2 million children stepped right up to sign the official Jim Key pledge. I promise always to be kind to animals. Doc Key and beautiful Jim Key were now famous. Record-breaker crowds packed coliseums, theaters, and music halls across the nation to see them. In every city and town, thousands of people bought tickets to attend Doc and Jim's performances. Sometimes police officers had to step in to control the mobs of enthusiastic fans who gathered. Doc and Jim were invited to perform on stages where only white entertainers had been welcome before. Doc would not accept the segregated seating that forced African Americans into the worst seats. He insisted on special performances with equal seating for all. The property owners agreed. They couldn't argue with the most popular attraction in the country. In spite of Jim's many skills, skeptics tried to prove that Doc and Jim's act was all a hoax. They scrambled the letters, mixed up the numbers, scattered the colors and flags. Nothing seemed to fool Jim. In 1901, an investigation was conducted by professors from Harvard University. They studied Doc and Jim's performances, looking for signs of trickery. They asked Doc many questions. Some say it's hypnotism, and that kind of thing. But I don't know anything about that, Doc said. But I do know. Jim knows and does what I ask him to do. The next day, the Boston Daily Globe newspaper printed an article with the results of the Harvard study. The professor came to the conclusion that there was no tricks or hoax. It is simply education, they said. By 1906, 73 years old, Doc and 17-year-old Jim were worn out. For 9 years they had traveled the country. Now it was time to go home to the rolling hills of Shelbyville, where they could continue to learn and play together. They had proven to millions of people what Doc Key had always believed. With kindness, anything is possible. It is hoped that those who have met Jim Key will have carried away with them a kinder regard toward animals and will go forth resolved to whatever may be in their power for the care of our friends. From a tribute to Jim Key, Atlanta Constitution, December 23rd, 1898. And then this is kind of some information about Doc Key, which I'm not going to read that. He is real, and this really did happen. So what were the causes and the effects?